Joining us now is Daniil Manaenkov. He's the head of US forecasting at the research seminar in Quantitative Economics at the University of Michigan. Thanks for joining us today. Now, the labour market grew faster than expected. What's your reaction to the latest data and what it says about the state of the labour market and economy in general?
Well, we don't track specific stocks, but in general, the report today that came out was good on the face of it, but if you look at some details and basically against the backdrop, it's quite worrisome, at least to me. So when you look at the details of the household deployment report, you see that there are quite a bit more people who have been unemployed for long term, that is more than 27 weeks. You can see that people who are entering the market, the labor market, are finding a hard time finding jobs. And I mean, the unemployment rate has been trending down for quite some time. There is a rule by the former Fed economist, Claudia Sahm, which is about to get triggered, which basically is very close to very recessionary levels. So on the face of it, 200,000 jobs sounds great. If you look at the details, there are plenty of signs that will worry market watchers, the Fed, and economists in general.
And does that have anything to do with the types of jobs that we saw a rise in? Or, can you talk a little bit about the more strong performing sectors versus the ones that were slowing down, and if that has any relation to the concerns that you're talking about?
The job gains continue to be concentrated in a few large sectors, but I mean, to be fair, they are just large sectors of the economy. So education and health services provided about 80,000 jobs out of 200. We got a very large contribution from the government, about 70,000 jobs, which is quite outsized, which is probably going to shrink. But we've had a few sectors that we were hoping would rebound. So manufacturing looked like it might have been recovering, but it continues to shed jobs. Some smaller sectors like mining are not adding to jobs, and maybe we're seeing signs of construction jobs turning around and actually starting to decline. So construction has been weathering the interest rate storm for the couple of years pretty well, but now we're seeing some declines in the pace of job creation. So maybe there's some trouble in construction on the horizon. So,
right.
Yeah.
Now, a cooling in the labour market was supposed to support Federal Reserves make multiple reductions in interest rates this year. People were hoping for it in some ways. Of course, there is positives to negatives about this. Can you talk a little bit about the relationship between employment and inflation and how this slight rise in jobs will impact the Fed's rates decision?
Right. So the Fed always wanted to lend the economy sort of gently and safely, so that is to bring down inflation to about in the neighborhood of 2%, while preserving the momentum or basically making sure that the economy continues to add jobs. And what we've seen today is maybe a little bit on the spooky side. So we got significant downward revisions. We got some signs of weakness. And the concern would be that once the labor market starts deteriorating, it's really hard to stop it without dramatic action. On the other hand, the Fed still wants to wait and see and make sure that the inflation is slowing down enough. So basically, the Fed is going to be stuck between waiting for longer to see maybe that inflation will slow down as they want to, or maybe they will wait too long and not act soon enough to prevent the labor market cooling too much. So in another world where the Fed paid equal amount of attention to unemployment or to the labor market and to the inflation, they would probably be thinking about cutting in July. But as we all know, the Fed generally keeps more, for the Fed, inflation is more important than the labor market, at least in estimates what they've been doing over their own history. So they will probably wait until September to start cutting, and then looking at what's going to be happening at that point, they'll decide whether to cut again through the rest of the year. So marginally, I think today's report sort of shifts the consensus toward the labor market might be softening a little bit too quickly. That's my take.
Right. Right. And of course, all the things you're talking about now are key issues this election. How might this data in regards to the state of the labour market impact the race for the White House? I mean, on one hand, a better jobs market looks good for Biden, but if inflation doesn't drop, the cost of living stays high, you know, how will voters vote about this particular issue, do you think?
Right. So I'm not a political economist, but I know a few things that matter in predicting inflation, in predicting election outcomes. And it's typically about a half-year change in the unemployment rate sometime during the summer preceding the election. So right about now, maybe this month, next month. And the dynamics here is that unemployment rate has been rising from a low level, but it's still trending up. So on that indicator, it's not looking good for Biden, but maybe some other factors will trump that. So it's very hard predicting outcome of elections, and few things that come out is the change in unemployment rate in the summer before the election for about 6 months. So that's where we are right now, and inflation and unemployment is rising. So take it for what it's worth.